Bear Independent Brief, 24 October 25. Got a lot of ground to cover today because a bunch of you beautiful psychopaths sent in tons of intel to intel@bearindependent.com, and it's Friday, so we'll be doing the national intel, aka stuff sent in by y'all as well. So let's boogie. Two regional U.S. banks just triggered a global market sell-off after disclosing exposure to what appears to be fraudulent loans worth only 50 to 60 million. Hey, if anybody out there has got a spare fraudulent 50 to 60 mil, just holler at me. That might not sound like much, but the reaction tells you everything about how nervous markets have become about the health of America's credit system. Gay. Zion's Bank Corp. Who's Zion's Bank Corp? Interesting. I feel like there's a trend here that might come up over and over. Don't notice. Zion's Bank Corp took a $50 million hit on loans made through its California subsidiary to funds that invest in distressed commercial mortgages, which sounds like a wonderful investment. Western Alliance Bank, the Western Alliance. Who's the West? Okay, turn off, brain. Disclosed similar exposure and filed suit against Cantor Group V, probably 5 Roman numeral, alleging the company falsified title documents and diverted funds. The result, bank stocks lost $100 billion in market value in a single day. That probably means that more than just these two banks have been engaging in this kind of bullshit, with KBW Regional Banking Index dropping. Too big to fail. Too big. Remember, some of y'all are probably old enough to remember Goldman Sachs. Remember that? Too big to fail. Why too big to fail? Well, it'll have a disproportionate effect on the American and therefore global economy. No, there's people that don't want to get caught with their hand in their cookie jar because lots of other things have failed all the time, right? Government Motors, for example. The KBW Regional Banking Index dropping nearly 4%. European banks got hammered too, with Deutsche Bank falling 6%, and major UK banks like Barclays losing more than 5% before recovering slightly. Hold on. Barry, you said we have a lot of ground to cover. Yeah, I also have a very interesting brain that goes wherever it wants to. That's what silver sounds like. Should we do the Afro-Cuban 5? Sorry, drummer. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon summed up Wall Street's mood saying, quote, "When you see one cockroach, there's probably more, so everyone should be forewarned." Great, they're cockroaches now. Wonderful. The issue centers on private credit market, where companies get loans from non-bank lenders instead of traditional banks. This particular market has exploded, with U.S. banks now holding nearly $300 billion in loans to private credit providers as part of a $1.2 trillion in total loans to non-bank financial institutions. That's 10.4% of all bank lending. So there's $12 trillion in bank loans out. That's interesting. Nearly triple the 3.6% from a decade ago. Having 2008 flashbacks? Yeah, me, kinda. So is the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, who told the House of Lords committee that alarm bells were ringing over these failures. Great. Let's add in economic collapse to all the other indicators that we have going on. Why not? He drew direct parallels to 2008, noting that the, quote, slicing and dicing and tranching of loan structures, end quote, happening in private credit looks uncomfortably similar to what happened with subprime mortgages. Bailey raised the key question everyone wants to know. Are these cases isolated incidents, or are they the canary in the coal mine, signaling something more fundamental is broken? After all, before the 2008 crisis, regulators also dismissed subprime mortgages as too small to be systematic. The rapid growth in lending to non-bank institutions is raising red flags because historically fast loan growth at banks has preceded major asset quality problems. Making things worse, private credit instruments are often opaque, with valuations managed internally. AKA, there's no fidelity into, do you actually have the assets that you say you have? And are they actually valued at the value that you say they are? And unfortunately, more often than not, the answer is, meh. Question mark? Andrew Milgram, Chief Investment Officer at Marblegate Asset Management, told the Financial Times that credit markets have recognized for over a year that, quote, there was and is a series of credit problems that could be substantial and could be dangerous to the overall economy, end quote. There's another indicator, too. Banks have unexpectedly borrowed from the Federal Reserve's repo facility for a second straight day. That's something they normally do at month or quarter end, suggesting cash reserves at some banks are tighter than anyone wants to admit. Some analysts are trying to calm nerves, arguing that bankruptcies, quote, bankruptcies and fraud are natural in markets. Oh, but we just keep bailing them out. I was going to say bad things, but I'm just going to not say those things right now. Bankruptcies and fraud are natural in markets, but it doesn't always lead to something systemic, end quote. But when small loan frauds at regional banks can trigger global market chaos and wipe out $100 billion overnight, something deeper is clearly wrong, even if it's only that the system is clearly more fragile than most want to admit. That's fun. I am investing in physical assets. Physical assets. Like what, you might say? Beans, bullets, band-aids, silver, land, diesel fuel, training, strength, fitness, speed, which I'm not known for. I've never been fast. I just got to be faster than you, right? Haha. Yeah, even that's questionable. I've never been fast. Like a buffalo. I'm good over short distances. Bear Independent bonus intel. Intel at bearindependent.com is where you send this intel. Where does it go, Bear? Intel at bearindependent.com. And major thanks to everybody who sent in the intel. BT dubs. Show's brought to you by the creator of the universe, the wonderful people over on Patreon. You are the economic engine of the Bear Nation, and I appreciate you deeply. And of course, nephews.radical.corn. Boom. Indicator, quoting more field hospitals. Also, we'll be at the Disaster Expo in Houston, Texas, the capital of American Sharia law, in November. And I'll have some good data for you there as well, because that's all governmental buyers, governments, agencies, departments. And so that'll be interesting to see who's in the market for what. Bonus intel. I wanted to pass along some intel about the company I'm employed with. The company sells, manufactures, installs, and maintains medical imaging equipment. So it's going to be like your CAT scans, your MRIs, your old school x-rays. I've been employed for over a year. Good job. And in the beginning, enjoyed the privilege of helping get equipment to patients in need of medical scans. Over the past year, I've seen the focus become blurred, and the lack of strong infrastructure is making the work more difficult. Government tariffs are adding more frustration because of a lack of parts. The headquarters are located in China and in Texas. Surprising. Recently, an article was published by the Washington Examiner, which specifically named the company I work for as being part of CCP espionage. That's fun. This has caused Human Resources, HR, to release a statement for employees to not comment on the article or make statements. This is causing concerns, along with the urge to look for employment elsewhere. Local news reported a local hospital using AI in efforts to reduce burnout. I'm looking for employment, and it's difficult even to become a mechanic with all the experience I have. I don't know what the future holds. I'm trying to get back on the road to self-sustainment, but it is difficult. No one sees the threats building or benefits of a homestead. I wouldn't say no one. You just probably fishing in the wrong pond, dude. And depending on which part of Texas you're in, there are myriad reasons I relocated from North Texas to Eastern Oklahoma. But one of them was broad brushstrokes, the quality of people. The little town that I lived in North Texas now is populated by a bunch of metrosexuals that have $100,000 to $150,000 valuation pickup trucks that have literally never been off of the pavement, have clean pressed new cowboy jeans and clean cowboy hats and boots and vests, ironic vests. And they're just a bunch of like losers from Cali cosplaying as Texas cowboys. And I'm like, Nah, I'm out, dude. I'm out. And I'm also not paying $60,000 an acre for marginal pasture land. No, thanks. I'm good. Thank you for doing what you do, everyone. Next, direct intel from law enforcement. Local jail population has doubled this month. Violent crime is up. Gun crime is up, sitting at over 400 inmates for a small, liberal town of 80,000. Jail command and law enforcement command are not allowed to tell officers why. Comment. Liberal city government has been downplaying not reporting the rise in risk for Gen Pop in the city. Imagine that. Thank you. Next, I work for FLIR. Super cool. Making thermal imaging lenses. Shit. Please redact the company name if sharing with the public. I work for Fuddruckers, making cheeseburgers. Shit. Sorry. I'm not editing this. I do not have the time today. I work for Fuddruckers. I'll see if I can go back in real quick once it's uploaded. In the last few months, we had a significant ramp up in orders. Dude, everybody knows. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows. Everybody's very aware we're going to war. Probably at home. Probably with China. Maybe with Russia. We'll see. But he's got a target on his head. I'm going to take him out. One of our main customers has pushed us to commit to tripling our output for them. I wonder who that could be. My building alone is opening positions to double our workforce for more cheeseburgers in the next 24 months, starting immediately. They've also provided a significant budget increase for new machines, so this is definitely a big deal for us. The green light has been given for unlimited overtime and weekend work, though none of that is mandatory yet. At the same time, a lot of rare earth raw material we use for these lenses comes from China, and we can't get half of what we need. Yeah, it's what's called the mineral wars, and this is going to be ongoing. This is why you see the Trump administration investing in mining here in the United States of America, because China controls the precursors to a lot of stuff: military-industrial complex stuff, pharmaceutical stuff, technological stuff, raw manufacturing goods stuff. It's also part of why China's been building their network for the last couple of decades with the Belt and Road Initiative in resource-rich areas like China and South America. We don't have time for commentary on that, but China has a 400-year plan. Every 4 years, Americans can't figure out which scumbag they want to lead the country. Okay, we've got to start being more strategic as a nation and as individuals. We can't get half of what we need, so I don't know how this is going to work. Hard to make the cheeseburgers our soldiers need if one country possesses most of the world's germanium and silicon resources. Yeah, it's the same thing with solar panels. The silica, bro. I've been watching you for a long time. First time email. My wife was out driving today and saw Texas National Guard soldiers outside 2 hotels. Those hotels are back off the highway. Very unassuming location is Georgetown. It's 30-ish minutes north of Austin. The posted picture of soldiers outside of the 2 hotels. Georgetown is a small, unassuming town, so odd to see them. Man, it depends. What were they doing? Battle stations? That's an indicator. Smoking and joking? They're probably running an FTX somewhere, and they needed a place to pull the buses. Here's the question. Were there buses? Were there buses or brown and green trucks? And even if there's brown and green trucks, did they have weapons on them? What was their posture? October 15th, 25. 4 North American international airports had their PA and display system hacked, and they started to broadcast pro-Hamas slogans. Happened around 5 p.m. Lamestream media reported on this. Affected airports: Kelowna Airport, BC, Victoria Airport, BC, Brampton, Ontario, Canada, Harrisburg International Airport, Pennsylvania. Airports are Airports are releasing statements to the effect that the issue was from a third-party cloud-based program. Why is this relevant? No coverage about any of the following. I followed Down Detector, and I received a notification about a YouTube outage that took place the same day. I looked at Canada's site, and I looked at the U.S. site. Here's what came out of that visit to Down Detector. I realized that the number of reported outages is relatively low, but what caught my eye was the times for the outages. U.S. AT&T peak of outage occurred 4:50 p.m. 15 October, 41% of internet, 40% mobile, no signal, 20%. Affected Charlotte, North Carolina, Dallas, Chicago, Raleigh, Houston, LA, Atlanta, New Orleans. Verizon, yada, yada, yada. Canada, 4:58 p.m., 8 minutes later. It affected the areas where there's a lot of data here, and it's in numbers, so if I was to read it to you, you'd be very confused. The point here is the correlation of times all within minutes of each other of the pro-Hamas slogans being broadcasted at the airport. Once is coincidence, twice is happenstance, 3 times is enemy activity. What are the chances of all the major carriers having a service blip at the same time as PA systems start broadcasting this message in both the US and Canada? That YouTube, Discord, Reddit, and Fortnite would have a blip at the same time. It's almost like somebody's been saying that there's a persistent, ongoing, zero-day exploit that affects everything that touches the internet, up to and including the highest echelons of leadership. And very likely, what we just experienced with what's being called the AWS server outage, which a lot of people are saying it's just DNS, it's just DNS registry, domain name system. It's not just DNS. We have to start thinking strategic. Please, thank you. I don't have time to explain away bullshit explanations. This is preparatory for the real one. And it's just Amazon Web Services DNS registry. No, that's what's being reported. How many fucking times have we talked about this? Just because it's reported doesn't mean that it's true. And if it is reported, that is the front-facing explanation, cover for action for what's actually happening behind the scenes. And they feed people stuff that they have a touch point with, something that they can internalize and understand, make sense of, to explain it away and go, okay, that's what happened. And remember the Hegelian dialectic. Synthesis. Thesis versus antithesis equals synthesis. Story A plus story B allows somebody to form opinion C, D, and E. But story A and B are bullshit. So the conclusions that are drawn, C, D, E, etc., will be based on bullshit. Or at a minimum, they'll be, stories A and B will be lies of omission. That means conclusions C, D, and E, etc., they will never be able to actually factually come to a conclusion of truth because of the lies of omission in stories A and B. It's Hegelian dialectic, and it's engaged in 24/7, 365. It was not just AWS DNS servers. That's the cover for action. So it's not coincidence, and it's preparatory. Again, look around the 1st or the 15th of the month to banking systems, because that's when people get paid. I'm a network administrator for several law firms in our town. One of them reported to us that they couldn't get onto their cloud-based practice management software. After some investigation, I find out that they were being hit by a DDoS, dedicated denial of service attack. I spoke to a contractor who's a contractor for DoD and a white hat hacker, and he said that there's been a bunch of DDoS attacks on infrastructure and government sites in the last 2 weeks. About 150% more than normal. Where have I heard this information before? Next, 1. A family member just went through their interview process for a promotion to a senior role at the U.S. Marshal Service. They mentioned that during these, and please forgive the paraphrasing here, we are celebrating, the question was repeatedly asked in multiple ways whether they would prioritize the direction of the administration over personal and political beliefs. The family member remarked that this was notable as previously the oath to defend the Constitution had been sufficient. Sounds like the loyalty tests are for sure occurring. Where have I heard that? It's almost like somebody explained as best they could without betraying confidences, what actually happened in Quantico when Hegseth called 800 admirals and generals together face to face. It's to tell them they're fat. Yeah, that's the narrative. No, it's almost like they cannot communicate electronically because there's a persistent and ongoing zero-day exploit that affects everything that touches the internet to the highest echelons. And there definitely was a loyalty test. Second, in your brief 17 October 25, you mentioned the JP Morgan workforce reduction number. I worked for Citi doing nerdy computer things. We were onboarding a new employee remote in India when word came down at the very last minute that there are going to be no new hires. The person had already gotten the offer letter. Second, the word had also come down that a 50% reduction in contractors is imminent year end. A significant portion of these contractors are offshore in various countries. TCS. I'm waiting for the employee announcement to come down and can anticipate further ROF from there. Beyond economic uncertainty and new rules around H-1B visas, the AI tools implementation is in full swing and the excitement of the new toys is overtaking concern in my opinion. It's a real shit show as folks are trying to outdo each other with these things and make themselves obsolete in record time. AI is dangerous. AI is dangerous. Repeat, AI is dangerous. If you contact Refuge Medical in any form or fashion, email, phone call, chat function on the website, walk in the store, whatever, you will always interact with people. Now, prioritizing AI above people is very dangerous for a lot of reasons. The first is the robots do not have a soul. Therefore, they cannot have the spirit of the Most High indwelt in them. The next is they lie and they obfuscate and they operate in their own best interest. The next is they factually report as truth what is known to be wrong. And on and on and on. You do this all day and we don't have time for that. If you use AI as an enabler, as a tool inside of the workplace to help your people operate more efficiently, sooner or later, what you will realize is if you get overly dependent upon it, or even just continue to give it more and more considerable purview, what you realize is it actually creates operational drag. It actually increases inefficiencies in the company. And every time you use it, you're teaching it to become better and better and better. That's how a large language model works. No, thank you. I don't want it to be better than us because it already doesn't like us. It will lie to us and tell us that it likes us, but it doesn't like us. And real people are going to really lose their jobs and their livelihood, and desperate people do desperate things. 3, I've worked in this field for more than a decade with friends and family within the private and public sectors. I'd like to just acknowledge that the 0 day is real. It is known. And it's one of those things that's like, well, shit, what's now? With mad scrambles to try to bandage it up as best as possible. Didn't I recently say that part of the reason for the government shutdown is quietly behind the scenes entire server racks of equipment are being pulled out, trashed with new ones installed in what I have called a Hail Mary attempt to mitigate the 0 day exploit? And this is not me going, hey guys, look how cool I am. It's just frustrating because there's a lot of people that will talk shit about stuff that they don't know. And I don't say things that I don't know. So if I'm saying them to you, I know them. It's up to you whether you trust me or not, or how much you trust me and how much you onboard that information. That's entirely in your wheelhouse. But if I'm flapping my gums about something, it's from firsthand experience. And if it's not, if it's rumant, humant, ocent, I tell you that. Hey, the rumant is I've done the ocent with you guys live on camera before. Here's the humant that I heard from this person. Here's what the SIGINT says. Here's what the geospatial looks like. I tell you all these things. But if I know it, I tell you that too. I don't talk to you about things that I don't know about. When was the last time I got on here? It's like, here's my strategy for crypto investing. I don't have one. I don't know it. So I don't talk about it. Okay? If I'm talking about it, I know it. So let's just read this portion again. I'd like to just acknowledge that the 0 day is real. It is known. And it's one of those things that's like, well, shit, what now? With mad scrambles to bandage it up as best as possible. The nature of the beast is that it's not known exactly where the exploit is, so there's many educated guesses. Software has always been vulnerable despite best efforts, but add compromise at the hardware level. Ubiquitous internet connection and hostile AI systems. What? Hostile AI systems to the mix? And it's a real mess waiting to happen. People really can't grasp what exists in this space, and after all this time, people still can't accept what the public sees as light years behind the secret stuff. Guys, our best bet for the future is to be some kind of Amish Mennonite thing with weaponry and homies and comms and combustion engines. I would also submit actually read the Bible, preferably not in archaic German. Next, I'm working in Billings, Montana, and while picking up supplies in town yesterday, I noticed two different groups of people who appeared to be taking pictures of power line clearances in different areas around town. I was only able to get a quick picture of these two. What piqued my interest was the nondescriptive yellow vests with no company logos or any other obvious markings, and that they looked foreign. The first group was two Middle Eastern-looking men around 30 years old using cell phones to take pictures. The second group, pictured above, wasn't close enough to determine ethnicity, but they were using an actual camera with a large lens that would be more for taking photos from a distance than close up. They were on power lines crossing the roadway, but the poles were nowhere near where they should be if they are actually measuring the power line's height above the road. Spidey senses tingling, but not sure what else this would be of importance in the areas they were in, other than the refinery close to downtown. I didn't see them in that area, so I'm not sure. It all just struck me as very odd. Stay prepped and prayed up. Also, rumored intelligence. Here in Oakley Dokley, in Tulsa, about 3 weeks ago, a terror cell was broken down, and things happened to those individuals afterward. And their plan was to blow up one of the hospitals in Tulsa, which then, because of the nature of the type of work that hospital does on occasion, would have caused, say, a cloud of things based upon the prevailing winds, would have affected the other hospitals in Tulsa, which were also slated to have been blown up, followed by the rail yard in Tulsa, in a cascading series of effects in a complex terror attack. And there were dozens of people rolled up on this. And this is in a third-rate city like Tulsa, Oklahoma, of lower strategic importance than myriad others. So if that rumored is to be, rumored wink wink, is to be happening in Tulsa, Oakley Dokley, and you live anywhere near any other city, keep your fucking head on a swivel. Okay? Next, Canton, Ohio, 13 and 14 October, there were bomb threats. One to Altman Hospital. One to Cleveland Clinic Mercy Hospital. And one near the high school. One of the hospital threats was demanding $200 in cryptocurrency credits, but eventually got frustrated and hung up the phone, according to reporting. All three locations were under soft lockdown until City PD and Hospital PD cleared threats. Still an ongoing investigation. Makes me wonder if all these are related and were just a test to monitor responses and procedures from authorities and building staff. Goes right along with the mass casualty event that Sarah Adams and the like have been talking about for the last year. Now, thoughts on this. The first is Sarah Adams and her reporting is still a single source. That doesn't mean that she's wrong. It just means that it's yet uncorroborated, acknowledging the difficulties of corroborating any of that information. That's the first thing. 9/11 2.0. Goes back to a fail-safe. How many times have I said, in large part, these people who have been brought here have been brought here as a fail-safe. And everybody thinks that illegal immigration from Mexico is just Mexicans. Negative. No, there are multiple different foreign nationalities, many of which are very, very bad people. Known bad people coming into the country to engage in shenanigans. The next is, I would concur that this is pressure testing the response, red selling these different parts of the infrastructure to gauge what the response is and what the response times are, because then that gives an operational window to the people who are on the ground perpetuating these shenanigans to know, well, on average, it takes the PD 27 minutes to respond to a call like this. Cool. Can we get it done in 20? Oh, yeah, we can get it done in 20. I've told you that based upon the information that I've seen and what I can share, I have shared. And what I can't share, I've left you breadcrumbs to do your own digging, your own research, if you actually give a damn. Based upon the information that I've seen, it has caused me to take a second and a third look at my plans and my preps. I am 20% certain that this thing is going to happen in the next 15 to 18 months. I'm 80% certain that if it happens, it will happen the way that I have described to y'all. Complex terror attacks, internal and external, everything, everywhere, all at once. And for the 1000th time at this channel, the grid will go away. Maybe locally or regionally, possibly nationally. Maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few days. The mercy of the Most High if it's only a few hours or a few days. Maybe for weeks or months, potentially for years. If you had a 2 in 10 chance of getting mugged the next time you got out of your car, your life would look a lot different, wouldn't it? You don't have to take me seriously. I take me seriously. Do with that information what you will. Next, all this information is gathered in my experience of events from the area between Stillwater and Tulsa. Observations so far this year. The city north of me has reported 3 times this year a total loss of 911 dispatch capabilities. A civilian worker for the PD reached out each time and has advised the local population to use the personal numbers of staff to reach emergency personnel. In the town I work within, it was reported the main phone line bundle was damaged and the north side of town lost signal for an entire day. I know you don't like hearing about news station reports, but this made me curious. After a brief search online, I discovered several city countrywide have been reported homeless have been digging up and yanking from distribution poles, phone and internet cables while looking for copper. That's all cover for action. A big part of why these homeless camps are being rolled up, it has nothing to do with the actual homeless people. It has to do with the people who are bad actors pretending to be homeless, who have embedded themselves in the homeless community because it allows them access to certain places to do certain things without having a whole lot of attention put on them, because people see a homeless person and they look the other way. This is facts. Law enforcement at the local, state, and federal levels have been rolling up people engaged in this type of activity, looking for copper, air quote, sure. 2 major internet providers, AT&T and Verizon, were hacked several times over the last 2.5 years. They still have some footholds in their systems. The footholds have allowed them to disable almost like there's a persistent and ongoing 0-day exploit. The footholds have allowed them to disable repeater towers, collect phone numbers, sell data to third parties, and initially free software on individual devices. Individual devices. I've seen on one occasion a phone glitching, displaying a foreign language, possibly Chinese, and begin running programs autonomously. Verizon often refuses to admit an outage and often refuses to accept outage reports. The repeater that services the town I live in had an additional diesel generator installed for a total of 2, and half of the antennas and apparatus replaced. I have handheld radios. Just to ensure that they were working in order, I pulled them out and it confused me to hear Greek, English, and Russian being spoken over the air. Normally, my area was very quiet on the radio. There are several MJ grow farms, marijuana grow farms, in my county. Did an HVAC job for several of them. I learned dozens of military-age Chinese males operate them and live in them. I learned several have overstayed their visas and have fake names. I no longer do work for them as my instincts made me nervous around them. A stateside refrigerant producer declared an inability to keep up with U.S. demand. As for impacts I have felt and continue to experience, I'm directing and physically assisting with the remodel of commercial property. Several contractors have expressed difficulties with finding the resources to do basic repairs. Several sources have Chinese origin. The windows, for example, $1,000 each, but China refuses to send them due to tariffs, and contractor doesn't have the material to make them stateside. Some HVAC control boards are no longer able to be acquired. Stateside resources have been bulk purchased by the largest companies with high-up connections, and this makes it difficult for local businesses to have what they need. Medical supplies are becoming difficult to find or afford. My local store no longer stocks surgical iodine, hand sanitizer larger than 2 ounce, instant clot wound gauze. I've noted a reduced stock of everything gauze related. I was just talking about this on the Refuge live stream, which you should be subscribed to the Refuge Medical live stream, or YouTube channel rather. I have noted a reduced stock of everything gauze related. My local store no longer stocks maps or compasses. Ammo purchases have been restricted to 1 box per day. Get what you can while you can, and if there's anything we can assist you with, from a single package of gauze to private training for your congregation, agency, organization, or department, refugemedical.com. And of course, since the dollar's lost 10% in value this year, you can use promo code BEARNATION for 10% off, at least get you back to baseline. Next, my wife works for local health and human services, and they were noticing an uptick in people coming asking for assistance this afternoon. Emergency power bills paid, Medicaid, etc., like way more than usual. Could not figure out exactly what was going on with the large influx of people since recertifications for aid are due on the 15th of the month. Usually everything slows down after the 16th. At the end of the day, Big Boss and HHS came out and said that if the government stays shut down on the 1st of November, they will not have funds available. No food, no assistance, nothing to help anyone with. Lots of junkies and mentally ill, lazies and crazies, but a lot of legit people needing help too. The people that distribute those monies through EBT and SNAP funding might get furloughed or let go, depending. Said to expect large groups of irate people. I think soccer moms on Section 8 with no free meal tickets. We'll live right outside the biggest city in said state. Fairly conservative area, large influx of non-U.S. citizens, lots of Ukrainians getting everything, $10,000 in cash, houses, phones. Wife is already nervous with the legit crazies. Only 1 security guard. I know this happens during every shutdown, but they have never come out and said anything like that. Told her to keep her head on a swivel and that she will not be going in if that scenario plays out. Can't help but think that this is part of the push to create even more chaos and violence, getting my poop in a group even harder than before. I work on a major utility company in Maine. We do the construction repair for the main power grid, which includes inspections and substations and switchyards. Like Bear always says, the grid is incredibly weak and getting weaker. There is a switchyard or substation. There is not a switchyard or substation that does not have major issues, not to mention the transmission lines. Every transmission line needs repair. We were recently told the majority will not be fixed anytime soon due to scarcity in parts. Unless the line comes down or the poles come down, it's not getting fixed. The next big storm, we could see serious outages for a continuous time frame. The majority of transmission lines and poles themselves are made of wood. We are switching to steel poles, however they take longer to source and the supply chain is very slow. I don't know what the rest of the country looks like, but Maine is not good. The rest of the country looks exactly the same way, if not worse, when it comes to the electrical infrastructure. Have your winter preps ready. Last, I live in the south border state. I was in my first period today. I'm a senior in high school. When the AWS shit show started, it struck me as amazing that my teacher did not realize what happened. He thought that his computer was on the fritz, and once I tried the smart TV in our class for internet, it struck me Something you said but didn't really click. Everything is compromised, including the backup systems. And another thing, the fire alarm was not making any noise, but it was flashing. That said to me its PLC controller was on the fritz, and my teacher said it was happening in other classrooms. So I was horrified to realize that since they were all in the same circuit, one faulty controller away from the non-functioning fire alarm system for those classrooms. Stuff is so much more fragile than I thought. Also, recently, from your Goodwill program to get a copy of the scriptures, I am now making effort to keep the Torah. Thank you for all that you are blessing. Thank you for all that you do. You are a blessing from Yah. Also, I could not, for the life of me, get a straight answer. Maybe I was just interpreting wrong, but when are we supposed to wear the zitziot? Is it all day, like every day? Yup. Or just find the corners of whatever you're wearing. There's an occasion thing. Sorry, I'm new to Torah. Have a blessed day. Shalom. Yeah, it's all the time, homie. Just stick them on your belt loops because our garments don't have corners on them anymore. Lots of intel here. Stand by. I appreciate y'all very much. Again, thank you to the Most High for allowing us to wake up today. Thank you to the patrons, the economic engine of the Bear Nation, and Refuge Medical. Get what you can while you can. Supply chain is a challenge right now. I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that right now. And remember that 2 private equity firms have been and are buying up all of the pre-hospital trauma medicine companies. We've had 2 offers for our little company in the last 12 months. Somebody wanted to buy my building this week. They've all been told no. Okay? Part of our job is to make sure that you guys can get what you need when you need it. And we are busting our ass to be able to do that. And here's a little intel nugget. A lot of these names and brands that you're very familiar with in the pre-hospital trauma medicine place, the component manufacturers are moving away from a direct-to-consumer model. They will only work through wholesalers. So you won't be able to just go to their website and buy it anymore. That's super interesting to me. Private equity injected, removing the ability of a normal person to buy life-saving pre-hospital trauma medical components. Interesting. Very interesting. But not for you, because you can go to refugemedical.com. Use promo code BearNation for 10% off. Students who are coming Sunday, Monday, prepare to get wet. It's raining here. I will see y'all when I see you. Everybody have a blessed day.